Of all the misunderstandings about how our nation and its governments were designed to work, probably the most dangerous is this idea that the courts settle law. We'll look at this next on the Constitution Study. Ponder this.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Well, hello there, everybody. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study. Another episode of Ponder This. This is where we read and study the Constitution. We teach the rising generation to be free. And this series of Ponder This is all about stopping and thinking about what something is going on. You can find out more over at that website, constitutionstudy.com. Follow the mailing list. See what's going on. I got some exciting stuff that may be coming up soon. I've been working on the book, been working on a couple of online classes. I hope I'll have good announcements coming out shortly. But today, I want to talk about this idea of judicial supremacy, the idea that the courts ultimately settle law. This is just not true. Right? And in fact, those of you who have heard of this, you may have heard of the Supreme Court case Marbury versus Madison. I discussed that in an episode I did on Marbury versus Madison, where I did something really weird. I actually went in and I read the opinion and realized it doesn't say the courts get to decide what the law says. It basically said, no, the courts cannot be granted power that the Constitution doesn't allow it. So, but let me back up a little bit. So we've all heard about things like Roe v. Wade, Obergefell. There was another one dealt with gun control in Washington, drawing a blank on the name at the moment. And we keep hearing that, it's settled law. In fact, I even remember President George W. Bush saying he thought a law was unconstitutional, but he was going to sign it. He thought a bill was unconstitutional. He was going to sign it into law and let the courts figure it out. The courts don't settle law. Why? Because law can only be created through the legislative process, which means it has to be done through Congress. In fact, if you read a Supreme Court opinion, you know what it says? It says the opinion of the court. Now, people say, well, the court ruled. Courts don't rule. In fact, if you read the Supreme Court opinion, it says the court held. That's their opinion. I was having a debate with somebody about the case Barron versus Baltimore and the applicability of the Bill of Rights to the states. And he said, well, the Supreme Court said, I said, yeah, that's an opinion. Well, no, the Supreme Court said, yeah, read it. It's the Supreme Court opinion. They got it wrong. And I can prove it. But that's another show. One I think I've already dealt with. But this idea that the Supreme Court can overrule the legislative branch, the executive branch, the states, it's a myth. But it's one we all believe and it's one we all follow. So when the Supreme Court said that abortion, that when they found for Roe in the case, Roe v. Wade, that she could not be denied an abortion, all they really found was that in that particular case, between Roe and Wade, Roe could not be denied an abortion. They did not legalize abortion throughout the nation. They didn't. No law was passed. No law was changed. They can't do it. I was talking to somebody about the Obergefell decision. And in fact, there's a gentleman here in Tennessee who has a court case because according to, the Obergefell case said any state law that did not recognize a marriage or would not marry people of the same sex was unconstitutional. I live in Tennessee. Tennessee's law says a marriage between a man and a woman. Tennessee didn't pass a new law that was Obergefell compliant. So under what legal power do people have to issue state marriage licenses? If the law is illegal, how are they doing it? Because you never stopped and thought. The court didn't change the law. The court merely said, yeah, in our opinion, this is wrong. Well, first of all, yeah, it's their opinion. They are 9 human beings. They make mistakes. Trust me, Read some of my articles on some of the Supreme Court cases I review. They make a lot of mistakes. They make a lot of simple mistakes. It's amazing how such educated people have such a difficult concept with basic reading comprehension. But they don't change law. I'm working hard to change how I speak, to say, no, they're not rulings, they're opinions. They don't settle law. They cannot settle law. It's impossible for them to settle law. Why? Because they neither wrote it nor can they change it. It's this general idea that the courts get to decide. We've turned the courts into a form of king, an oligarchy. They get to rule, and they'll just let the peons in Congress play their little games. But ultimately, the court will decide. Do you want to live in a nation ruled by a court of 9 kings and queens? Do you want your country ruled by 9 high priests that one day think something's okay and the next day think it's not? You see it in this devotion, this slavish devotion to precedent, where what the court said before is more important than the actual law that's written. The people you hire to represent you write a law, but then the court says, well, I know the legislature said that, but we, in our previous opinions, thought that was wrong, so that's what we're going to go by. It's something that slides by all the time. Every day we see this going through, and we don't stop to think what's actually going on. So when you hear the court settles law, a court ruling, that the law, that Roe v. Wade is a law of the land, stop and say, no, it's not. There is no law called Roe v. Wade. There is, the court cannot settle law because it cannot change law. We've got it backwards. And until we start, ourselves recognizing that the court cannot issue rulings, they cannot change law, they only issue their opinions. As Hamilton said, they have neither force nor will, only judgment. Until we require that, how do we expect our representatives, the people we hire to represent us, how do we expect them to understand it? It's up to us to learn and to understand what's really involved in a court system, to hold the court to its constitutional boundaries. And then we have to hold our elected officials to their job to hold the courts to their constitutional boundaries. But the people in Congress aren't going to do it until they're afraid that they won't keep their jobs if they don't do what we want. If they won't do their job to hold things accountable, we won't vote them in next time. Until they're afraid of that, we're going to keep going down the road of tyranny, where the law doesn't matter. What 9 justices on the Supreme Court can come to agreement on what that law means is what matters. That's not a republic. That's not even a democracy. That's an oligarchy. That's tyranny. That's your life being ruled by 9 men and women in black robes. So I hope this made you think. Stop and ponder. Think about how many times you've said or have heard about court rulings, or times you've heard about, the Supreme Court ruled or settled law. Maybe it's time that we stop listening to the people who don't know what they're talking about and start checking it out for yourselves. Read the Constitution, see what the court's actually allowed to do. And then when we've got that education, we can start going to our representatives and our senators saying, this is the law, and you swore to uphold it. If you're not going to do that, I'll find somebody who will. So anyway, that's what my thinking is today on the Constitution study. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I hope it made you think. That's the idea of ponder this, is just throw out an idea, kind of think about it kind of off the cuff from my standpoint. I don't really have notes. And maybe get you to think about things as well. As always, you can head over to theconstitutionstudy.com, support the work that I'm doing, ask questions, make comments, leave comments with this video. I pick them all up and I'll answer what I can. I hope I hope this kind of angered you a little bit. And again, I hope to see you next time on the Constitution Study. Have a great day.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from